Good morning, gentlemen. All right, welcome to a Friday Blackbird workshop. I hope everybody's doing good and ready for the weekend. Let's see here. So there is one name here in the room that I do not recognize. So yeah, so let me ask if there's anybody in the room who is, and let's see here. Sorry, I'm still kind of getting ready here. So yeah, let me ask if there's anybody in the room here who is new to these workshops. And if you are new to these workshops, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? So the workshop introduction is where I'll explain what we do in these workshops, right? What we do in these workshops, and probably more importantly, what we do not do in these workshops. And then also I'll explain how the recordings work. So if you ask a question, you'll know, how soon you can get a recording of your question. And also, lastly, I'll explain the indicators here that I can install in my machine here. So, all right, so if anybody would like to hear the workshop introduction, just let me know, and I will get that out of the way first. And let's see here. So while I'm giving a little bit of time here to let me know if anybody wants to hear the workshop introduction, we are going to follow up on yesterday's Bloodhound question about generating a signal off of the inside bar, pivot point there, signal that we built yesterday here. So actually, I had deleted one of the screenshots. There we go. This is probably the better screenshot here. Yeah. So we built this signal here. So when price is coming down, there's an inside bar and a double bottom, and so this would have generated a long signal. So today we're going to incorporate that into Blackbird. So that'll be our first Blackbird question. So let's see. Raul is not sure if he's showing as RJ. Actually, Raul, your full name is showing. So full first name and last name. So actually, I don't think I've seen you show up as RJ for quite some time. Yeah, I think it was only when you first started showing up in these workshops was your name listed as RJ. So yeah, at some point, yeah, you start showing up with your full name. So there you go, RJ. Let's see here. All right, well, I do not see any takers on the workshop introduction. So, all right, so let's get into this first question here. And also, I have a little explanation of the order settings to be used with that inside bar, pivot reversal point here, right? So it's going to be just a little scalping setup here. So 3-tick profit, 5-tick stop, and then the entry is going to be plus 1 tick above the closing price, right, of the signal bar there. Right? Or alternatively, we'll create another way, another setup for this entry. So, which could be 1 tick above the high or low of the bar, right? So, all right. So let's see here. All right, let's get Blackbird open. There we go. All right, so first thing I'll do is I will pull in the Bloodhound signals here. All right, we'll click on this again to open it up. And so first thing is we need to load in the Bloodhound template file there. So that's what the a little ellipses button does. Click on that. And that opens the open dialog window there, right? And so let's load in yesterday's workshop file. There we go. And next, let's select our entry signal. And so it was the inside bar reversal. Yeah. All right, so there's our signals pulled in. Right. And next, let's set up the orders here. So let's see here. So we want this to be one tick above the close. All right. So that most like, yeah, technically that would be a stop entry. So, all right, let's create a stop entry. All right, and next step here is we'll go into the initial placement here, and we can see it's already defaulted to the closing price, but we want one tick above the closing price, right? Not 10 ticks. So we'll just knock this down to 1, like so. There we go. Now, if we wanted it the opposite way, maybe minus 1 tick off of the close, right? Then we could change this to a limit order and then open up the initial placement and then set it to negative 1 tick. So there you go, 1 tick below the close, right, for a long trade. And if it's a short trade, then it'd be 1 tick above the close, right? So there you go. So lots of ways to mix and match this. And what was that? But let me go put this back here to a stop entry and also put this 1 tick above the close for a long, and of course for a short trade it'd be 1 tick below the close. So there we go. All right, pretty simple. Setting up the entry order there. And let's see here. All right, next step is our profit target is going to be 3 ticks. So I'm just going to start with that 10 tick from the quick list there. And then we can open this up, go into the initial placement there, and just knock this down to 3. So there we go, 3 tick profit target. And we're going to do the same thing with the stop loss. So again, I'm just going to use this 10 tick stop loss here from the quick list. And then we'll open it up, open up the menu, open up the initial placement, and then adjust this up to a 5 tick stop loss. And there we go. And that's it. We're all done. So, all right. Let's go ahead and do a couple of executions here. So I'm just going to click OK. And let's see here. I think the NQ is a little too quick for a 1 tick stop entry there. So let's go with the ES, and that should be a little bit slower. All right, just waiting for the data to load in. There we go. And also this will not work on a range bar. So let's switch this over to, let me see if maybe a 15-second bar will work on this. Yeah, there we go. Good. We do have a few few signals, so that'll work. And yeah, chances are we could wait forever for an actual setup here. So let's, I'll wait for this bar to close, and I'll just go long. There. All right, there we go. One tick off that doji close there, like so. And there we have it. All right, so next, let's take a look at setting up this other option here for the entry, right? Which could be one tick above or below the extreme of the bar, right? So in other words, the high or the low of the bar, right? So we can just open up the entry order, go into the initial placement, and instead of using the closing price, we'll use the high price. So take the high price plus one tick, right? There you go, very simple. So you can choose whatever bar price you want to add a tick to or subtract a tick from, and it's that's simple, that's straightforward. So let's do that, and I'll switch that, make that change like so, click OK, and let's close that. And so if I click go short, there we go. So it's one tick off of that bar's low. And actually, we might actually get a signal here. Oh, no, we actually did not get a signal because that was a doji. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, we did get a signal. Sorry, I had it on the wrong logic template. All right, yeah, that is something to be mindful of there, folks, is, yeah, I had the wrong logic template selected there. Yeah, so there we go. It was a signal. All right. So the issue was that I didn't have the auto trailing turned on. So there we go. Let's get the auto trailing turned on. Yeah. All right, so if one more bar closes here, we'll do another example of going long. There we go, go long, and it's one tick above the high here. All right, so we'll take a look at this again here. All right, so setting up the profit target and the stop loss, that was the easiest part there. All right, and again, you know, what way I did it is, you know, when you click on the order, right, you can just start with one of these quick list options here, right, to get you started, and then you can just go in and modify the settings there. All right, so just go into the initial placement, and for, you know, for these simple type of exit orders there, right, you just go in and adjust the tick offset there, and that's all it takes. Here, click OK. Yep. And you know, for the entry order, so for the entry order, it's just a matter of going into the initial placement and doing the same thing. You know, determining, do you want to use the high and the low of the bar, right? Or do you want to use the closing price right? Or who knows, maybe even the open price, right? Something like that. Or maybe, let's see here, or yeah, or maybe the body top, right? So if your signal, I should say, if your system doesn't have a bar direction filtered, so like for example, we have a long signal, but this is a down bar. So maybe you want to place your entry order one tick above the top of the body instead of the closing price, right? So in this example, it'd be the open, right? Not the close, which is down here. So, so if you want to say off the top of the body, right, regardless of whether the body is the open or the closing price, right, then we could just use the body top instead there. Okay. So yeah, it's just a matter of picking, whatever bar price you want to offset from. So I'll just leave it on the high, like so, and that is it. So that's all it took to answer this question here. So if anybody has any follow-up questions on this, now would be a good time. Get your follow-up questions in, or if anybody has their own new question, yeah. So I will just hang out here waiting for the next question to come in. Wayne would like to take some screenshots. Yeah, you bet. Here, whoops. There. Okay, so for the entry order, there we go. Right, so first thing you got to do is determine, are you going to use a stop entry order type or a limit entry order type here, but both of these are stops. And then the next one is setting up the initial placement there. All right, so it's a matter of picking the correct bar price that you want to use there, like so, and then setting up the offset as well. Right. So there you go. So there's the entry order. And then it's the exact same thing for the profit target and stop loss, right? Go into the initial placement, right? And you'll notice this menu is exactly the same as the menu that's used for the entry order. Now, of course, with the exit orders, right, you always, or typically, you base your price off of the entry price, right? Now, if you wanted to, you could set your profit target off of the high of the bar if you wanted to. So you do have all the other bar prices here as well, right? And some of the other lesser known NinjaTrader bar prices, such as the median or the typical and weighted, and you have the body top, body bottom, you have all of those. But, right, exit orders are typically based off of the entry price there. So it's really just a matter, for your exit orders, it's just a matter of using the offset like so, or if you want to use an ATR based profit target there, probably the easiest thing to do is if you want to switch to an ATR, let's cancel that, I'll get rid of this and I'll go to the ATR from the quick list here. And then when we open up our initial placement, we can see the ATR is already placed in the offset section here, right? And the multiplier is already set to 2 there. So, all right, let me cancel that, and I'll put it back to normal. Oops, wrong one. Actually, I don't need to go and delete that. That's just a little extra work. Let's just delete the ATR and then put in our 3 ticks. Or 3 ticks. There we go. All right. There we go. Back to a 3-tick profit target. So stop loss, right? That menu looks exactly the same. Initial placement, right? This is the exact same menu, except because this is a stop loss, we're using negative numbers now, right? So we're adding a -5 to the entry price. Right. So this is basically just all basic math, it's just all simple math there. All right, so hopefully Wayne got all of his screenshots and he's good to go. All right, well, again, gentlemen, I'm ready for the next question to come in here. So I'll just hang out until I see the next question, all right? Or any follow-up questions on this, on Wayne's topic today here. All right, well, Wayne, have a good weekend, and I'm guessing I'll see you again in another workshop with some more questions. So, and you're always welcome to email in your questions for these workshops anytime during the week, even the weekend. And what's helpful is in the subject line of your email, just put, workshop question or something like that. So that kind of helps Mike and I identify, what the intention is of your email, right from the get-go. So, all right, that always helps us out. All right. Oh, hey, there we go. We got another signal right there. All right, well, just kind of repeating myself here. I'm just waiting for the next Blackbird question to come in here. All right, looks like a couple more people have joined us recently, so good. Hopefully somebody out there has some Blackbird questions for me. Let's see. Well, I see 2 people, John and Vicus, have their hand raised. So gentlemen, there's no need to, raise your hand in these workshops. Just simply use the Q&A window, the questions and answer window, to ask your questions or make your comments there for me. That's how we do it in this workshop. All right, good. Looks like Vicus has some questions for me here. Let's see here. All right, so normally I always take questions first come, first serve here, but John's question is pretty simple and quick, straightforward. So John is asking, are dynamic profit targets a thing. I mean, if you mean by dynamic, like maybe one trade, you want to be able to use a 3-tick profit target, and then the next trade, you want to use a 5-tick profit target. Blackbird's a piece of software. It can't read your mind, so it's not going to know when you want to switch from a 3-tick profit target to a 5-tick profit target. Just using the previous question here, right, as my example. So when you put something in, right, you can go in and adjust at any time, right? So I just adjusted it to a 6-tick profit target. Click OK, and when the next signal comes in, Blackbird's going to be using a 6-tick profit target now, right? So you can go in there and change your orders around in real time, and then when the next bloodhound signal comes in, or if you're just trading discretionarily, right, then you can go in and adjust your exit orders. And then if you're again trading discretionarily, or if you're using the dynamic planner, it's going to use the new settings here. So of course, the automatic dynamic profit target or stop loss is an ATR, right? That's why some people use ATRs, right? Because it's dynamically adjusting, right? The ATR increases and decreases with the volatility of the market there, right? So if you want somehow this dynamic nature to be fully automated, right, then you would need, I guess, an indicator like the ATR, which is adjusting your profit target automatically, based on, whatever your criteria is there. So, right. Yeah. All right. So there's John's question. All right. So now let's get into this beefy question here from Vicus. All right. So let's see here. I'm going to clear everything out and we'll start over. Actually, I'll leave that going here for a little bit. Actually, no, I already wiped it out. There. All right, so give me a moment to read through Vic's question. Yeah, so Jim, just give me a little bit here. I am reading and rereading Vika's question here, so I make sure I got everything squared away in my head and that I understand all the moving parts here. So yeah, so just bear with me and give me some time to absorb all this information and digest it here. All right. Well, I think I have. Yeah. Let's see. No. Yeah. So I understand. Yeah, Vika's question here, and actually, it all sounds possible. Yeah, with all the various options that Blackbird currently has here. Let's see here. All right, so let me take a moment here. So, in order to make this a good recording, here. All right, I'm going to copy this here. That way I have my own copy here that I can work with. So, all right, so we have that. And we have this other part. All right, so this kind of looks daunting, written down on paper, but actually it's not too complicated. Right, so essentially this is a cost averaging in system with automatically adjusting profit targets here based on well, not necessarily the changing average entry price when cost averaging in, but actually the target is actually automatically adjusting based on price, based on where the market goes there. So the stop loss is pretty straight. Yeah, is a basic stop loss. It's just a fixed 150 points there, right? So it's all straightforward there. So the the only what I don't want to say complex, but the only component that has some complexity to it is the profit target here, and making sure, right, that all the profit targets from the three different cost or from all the different entry points here, right? So we might have three positions here at any given time here, right? So we might have order set A, order set B, and C, depending on how the market moves there, right? So as we get the other two cost averaging entry points there, then our profit target, let's see, well, yeah, the profit target will adjust based on price movement there, but then also, so the other two scaling in contracts here, B and C, we want to make sure that the profit targets, all line up here. So so here we go, right? So if order set B and C, our scaling contracts get filled, we want to make sure that those profit targets all line up there. So, but since the targets are all being based off of price, they're all going to be automatically synchronized there. Okay, let's see here. And we do have one more trailing roll here. All right. So the profit target is going to reach a maximum a maximum pullback based on price movement here. Well, okay, so with this, let's start putting this together here. All right, so let's get Blackbird open here. And so I'm thinking to myself here, there's a couple of ways we could approach this. Since we might have three total entry points, right? So in other words, we're going to have three order sets here. So I'm kind of wondering how I want to approach this. One way is I could, so the first entry is going to be a market entry here. Well, since it doesn't say, I'm just going to use a market entry here. But for the two scale ins, I have two different options. I could use a market entry or I could use a limit entry there. And I think I'm going to go with the limit order. Yeah, the limit entry. So as the market pulls back, right, we'll have resting limit entry orders there, ready to go there. Yeah. But the other option is that I could use a market entry, but then if I do that, it gets a little more sophisticated, and I have to set up the placement option here so that Blackbird is monitoring when the market pulls back this 37.5 points there, right? So I'd have to go in here and let's see here. I could use the profit or loss trigger here. And so we're looking for a loss in points and set that amount. And then I could put 37.5 and get rid of that 37.5 like so. And Blackbird could monitor for that, but of course with the market order, right, who knows, you might get in at 36 or 37 points, maybe, maybe you got 2 ticks of slippage there, right? But if you don't want to have existing limit orders resting at the exchange for some reason, if you don't want to have those entry orders out there at the exchange, then this would be the option, is to convert that to a market order. Actually we could let's see here. Actually, we could set this as a limit order. And let's see. Well, I'm hesitant to use the other order prices because it's not fully fleshed out. So yeah, this isn't guaranteed here, but I don't have the average entry price available for entry orders here, but actually other order price does not work because that market entry won't actually have a price. Let's see here. So this will have to be a market entry. So this would have to be a market entry. And with the placement set up, if you don't want resting orders out there at the exchange, right? So this is going to introduce some slippage for sure, right? In today's markets, there's always slippage. So so instead of doing this more complicated way here, I'm gonna go with using, I'm gonna remove this, I'm gonna go with using a limit entry order here, and so I'm actually back to my initial problem. Which is I don't have access to the entry price, all right, for A here. Well, all right. I don't think this is going to work, but I'm going to give this a shot. Yeah, I'm going to give this a shot here. So we'll do a little test of this here. Let's see here. But first, I need to do a little math and convert points to ticks. All right. So we want 150 ticks is this 37.5 points. There. All right, so let's see if this works. And I'm gonna set up both of my scaling orders here, and let's make sure this works before I go any further. Let's see. All right, so initial placement is now going to be 300, like so. And all right, let's go short. And yeah, so looks like it did not work. Well, let's see if we have any information here on the log tab about that. No, and yeah, I was thinking there might be some information here on the log tab about those limit entry orders, because I saw a flash on the chart here where the chart shrank down, and it looked like Blackbird was placing those limit entry orders there, but no, it doesn't actually. Let's go to the orders here, and oh, actually it did. Let's see what happened. Filled. Oh, okay, yeah, so I was right. that yeah, it took a limit and just, yeah, as we can see, right, negative 75, negative 37.5. All right, that's what happened. So, all right, yeah, so what happened here is, all right, in the initial placement, right, this other order option here, this market entry has a price of 0. Yeah, so I kind of was guessing, speculating here, yeah, that a market order doesn't actually have an order price retained within it. Well, all right. So this is going to be less precise, but I can use the last price. So yeah, I can just use the last price. So, but again, because markets are moving so quickly, back in the good old days when trading was normal, if you did a market entry, it was basically going to be on the last price there. Yeah. So your chance of slippage was very, very minimal, but nowadays, there's going to be 1 or 2 ticks of slippage there. So that's as close as we can get to. And again, the issue is that, right, the first entry is a market entry here. Right. There. So actually, let me see if Vicus has any comments here for me. No, okay. Yeah, so if this first entry, actually was something other than a market, if it was set to a stop or a limit, right, and then we actually had a bar price, that we're basing our entry order on, right, then actually there'd be no slippage. So the 2 scaling orders here, right, like we can calculate that off of this known price, for the first entry order. So, but this is not a known price. So, so we're a little bit, so we're going to introduce a little bit of slippage here. All right, so there's part 1 is setting up our entry orders here, right? So we have our first scaling order, 37.5 points. Next scaling order is another, right, 37.5 points past that. So. And let's see. Oh, here we go. Here is the next scaling here. All right. And also, all of these are 6 contracts. Now, of course, you can just go in and, set the number of contracts as you see fit there, right? That's easy to adjust. So I'm just going to leave it at 1 contract there. All right. Okay. So next part, let's take care of the easy part here. So the stop losses are really easy. So it's just 150 points. From each entry price there. All right. So let's set that up here. So let's just go in and use the fixed offset there. 150 points. All right. So we're going to open up the initial placement, and so that converts to 600 ticks. So there we go. Stop loss is done. That was a piece of cake. And so now for the other stop losses here, I'm just going to copy the stop loss from A. There we go. And for our order set C, do the same thing. I'll just copy the stop loss from A, like so. There we have it. All right, stop loss is ran. Okay, so now we can focus on the more sophisticated component here, the profit target here. All right. So, all right, so I'm going to convert this to a long trade because I like to think in terms of long trades. It's easier for me the way I think here. Let's see here. All right, so it's going to be plus 75 points from the lowest price there, from the lowest price. So plus 75 points. Oh, so actually, you know what? I need to know, what is this lowest price? Lowest price from where? Yeah, so, or highest price. Yeah. So is this the highest price of the day and the lowest price of the day? Or is this from a swing point? So are you using maybe a swing indicator, right? And you're grabbing like the nearest swing high and swing low, or is it the daily high and daily low? Yeah, so that's actually one piece I need. Highest price after order entry. Okay, no, that cannot be done. So Blackbird does not wait to place the exit orders. Blackbird places exit orders immediately. Yeah, so we have to grab a high price or a low price, at the time of the entry order. Yeah, you can't, Blackbird will not wait, a few seconds or a few minutes or a few bars, for price to do something. Those exit orders are submitted immediately. As soon as the entry order is filled, those exit orders are filled, right? So, so we can't grab a price after the entry order is filled. Yeah. So what I will do is I will just use the swing high and the swing low there. All right. Okay, so actually I'm going to pause for a moment here and put the swing indicator on the chart. All right, so let's go grab this, where is it? There we go, swing highs and lows. And we're going to adjust the number of swings down to 2. And let's see here. I think it's okay to reduce the swing strength here, but since I don't know, the entry, or I don't know, what the entries are based off of, I don't know the trading methodology here. So adjusting the swing strength, that will have to be, determined, by the trader to set an appropriate swing strength. I'm just going to take a guess at 5 is probably acceptable here. And the reason why I'm knocking it down to 5 is the lower the strength, the quicker, right, a swing point is identified. But also the lower the number, then we might get these intermediate swing points here, right? Which, I don't know, might be okay, may not be. Again, I don't know what the trading methodology is that determines the entry point here. So I'm going to leave it at 5 here. Let's just get that on the chart. So there we go. All right. So there's our highs and low points. Used. All right, so let's open this up again. So let's set up our first profit target, and then once we get our first profit target in, then we can copy the other profit targets. We can just copy this first one that we set up here. So we're going to use the swing highs and lows here, although. So when we use that one, it uses the swing patterns, and I don't think I don't think most people like this interface because it looks quite a bit different from using, from setting up the swing indicator right on the chart here. So I'm actually just going to go and change this to indicator value. There, indicator value. And now I can open up the indicator and go and select the swing trend here. And this, I think, right, this interface is, I think most people are comfortable with, right? Because it looks exactly like setting up the indicator on the chart there. So I'm just going to knock this down to 5 there. And let's see here. You don't really need to do this, but I'm just going to turn all this stuff off just for good measure. There. All right. Now we need to select the correct plots here, right? So so in a short trade, so if we're going short, we're taking the swing high, the highest point, and adding 75 points, right? So if it is a long trade, we're taking the low and adding 75 points. Let's see here. All right, so if it's a short trade, we want the highest high. And so if it's a long trade, we want the lowest low. There we go, lowest low. Oh, actually, hold on. Yeah, that's correct. All right. So this double bottom here and double top was throwing me off for a little bit. All right, yeah, so for a long trade, we're going to use the lowest low. And for a short trade, we're going to use the highest high. Here we go. Right, so again, this is all written for taking a short trade there. Right, so our profit target, we're taking the highest, right, the swing point high, and then subtracting 75 points. All right, so let's go back to our initial placement there. So we have the swing in there. So now we need to put in that. Hold on, I need to move this down a little bit. There. All right, so we need to put in that 75 points. All right, so that's going to be 300 ticks. There. So if it's a short trade, then it's minus, right, 300 ticks there, right? So highest price minus 300 ticks for a short trade. So if we open up our indicator here, right, we have the highest high for a short trade, and then subtracting 300 ticks, which is 75 points. So let's see. All right, so now we do have a trailing here. So one thing to note, Blackbird does not place stop orders for your targets. All right, so as far as I know, there's no way to place a target as a stop. So Blackbird only places limit orders for targets there. So if you have a broker that somehow allows you to use a stop, I would be curious as to how that broker is doing that. But in any case, that's another topic later on here. But so we have a trailing. So we have trailing going on here. All All right, so let's go to the trailing options here. And let's enable the trailing. All right, let's add a trailing rule. Okay, so give it some kind of a name there if you want. You don't have to. Yeah, so the target's always going to be, pulling in tighter and tighter based on price movement here. All right, so yeah, so let's go into the actions. And we're going to go into the move to. So let's see here. So we're going to use the low price and the high price. So we're just going to keep tracking, right, these bar prices here. So as each bar closes, this is going to be looking right at each bar price there. And let's see here. Yeah, that's it, right? That is it. So because this is a profit target, we need to go in and adjust the allow movement here, right? So you can see right now it's set to both directions, right? But we want to restrict this kind of like it's a stop loss, like a trailing stop loss here, right? We only want the profit target to pull in or to move as price goes higher. It sounds like, yeah, we only want this profit target to move as price goes higher because we're using the highest price reached there. So for a sell, for a sell order, we're gonna move that profit target higher and higher and higher. And if it's a long trade, we're gonna move that profit target lower and lower and lower here. So we're gonna restrict the movement here. So against. Yeah, we want to use against direction. All right. So again, since this is written as a sell trade, right? So a sell trade is, we want the market to go down, but we're only moving the profit target higher, right? So we're moving the profit target against the direction of the trade. So, and all right, so that should do it. And then the repeat, we're going to set this on repeat indefinitely. And so here, here's another option that we have. So you can wait for the bar to close and then move our profit target in a little tighter, or we could move our profit targets, on a tick by, well, this is points, sorry. Yeah, actually we have a bunch of options here. So as the market moves each point higher or lower, we could move that profit target based on each point of movement. Or if you want your profit target to move like a trailing stop loss, where it's tick by tick, right? There we go. Then we can say, all right, for every tick the market moves in a loss direction, then, right, move our profit target, or maybe every 2 ticks, right? So there's a lot of flexibility here to set the resolution of how often our profit targets move. So, Yeah. But I'm just gonna, keep this simple here. I don't really think, I don't think there's any actual practical need to set this on a tick by tick movement here. Because these distances are so vast here, yeah, my assumption here is that we can just leave this on each bar. So each bar closes, then we'll update the profit target there. Right, I think that'll be just fine. So, all right, so that is our trailing profit target that's pulling in closer and closer. So our profit target is reducing as the market moves. And then we just copy that to B, and we'll copy this to C. And there we go. All right, let me just kind of double check here. I'm going to pause for a moment, double check I didn't miss anything. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here's something. Yeah, so all the stop losses are to be fixed at 150 points from the initial entry price. Yeah, for all three positions here. Okay, so actually, we're going to go in and make an adjustment. So I'm going to delete C, and I'm going to go in and modify the stop loss for B, right? So B, we want the stop loss to match whatever it is for A. So let's go to the Options tab, and let's open up the initial placement. And so we're going to strip out. We actually don't want an offset here. And this time, this is a situation where we are going to use other order price. There we go. And we want to match the stop loss for A. There we go. So we want to set the stop loss for B to the stop loss for A. Right, so there we go. So that's how we get all our stop losses to match the initial stop loss position there. Okay, so now that we got that corrected, I can now go in to the stop loss for C, and we'll just copy the stop loss from B. There we go. All right, and if we open this up, there we go, right? Set to other order price, and it's utilizing the stop loss for A. So there you go, and no offset. There we go. So now all the stop losses will match each other. Okay, so there we go. And let me double check some more here, see if I might have missed something else. All right, yeah. So after kind of reading this again here, I think I'm gonna make the same adjustment to the profit targets here. Yeah. So this last statement here, right? Is there a way to configure so that the targets for B and C, always align, with the current price of the profit target for A. Yeah. So, I'm pretty sure that in theory, that the way this is set up, especially with the trailing here, right? So once we have this simple trailing here where we're just moving it based on, whatever the um, highest high price is or lowest low price is, right? Each profit target, each trailing rule is going to see the exact same high and low prices, right? So this is going to guarantee that the profit targets are all in sync there with because of the trailing rules here. But I am gonna go in here, and so the one thing that might actually change are the swing points here. Yeah. So, right, we can see here, right? So as price is pulling back, right, our high swing points are dropping down here. Um, you know, which temporarily, because the swing point prices are moving, right, as prices moving up and down, then for the initial placement, right, these profit targets might be out of sync for one bar. But then as soon as a bar closes, right, the trailing rules kick in, and the trailing rules are all the same. So that will resynchronize all the profit targets there. But so, I guess, just, uh, what, just for good measure, I'm gonna go and use the other order price option here. So we want to match the profit target for A. So there we go. Get that, switch that over, and clear out the offset there. Yeah, we want it to match it exactly. So there we go. Made that change. I'm going to open up this profit target and make that same change. So I'm going to go into the initial placement there. Switch this from indicator value back to price. There we have other order price set, and we have the profit target A set, and we just need to clear out the offset there, and we should be good to go. All right, let's see here. This one's fairly complicated, so I'm actually going to save this file out. So, all right. Let's see. right, I think that's a close enough name there for what we're doing. All right, let's save that out. And let's see. All right, so this requires a lot of market movement here. So I'm actually gonna disconnect my data feed here. I'm gonna switch data feeds. So let's disable the strategy and let's switch our data feeds. And oh, hold on. Now I should have, yeah, removed that open position there. Let's see, let's close that. There we go. All right, yeah, it's good to make sure you do that. Keep Ninja's database, clean. There we go. All right, so let's switch over to the simulated data feed. There, excellent. And re-enable Blackbird. Let's see. All right, the market's going down. What am I on, a 15-second chart? Yeah, all right, I think that works. Let me pull the market down and let's go long. All right. Now, the simulated data feed is kind of slow to get going here. All right, so while I'm waiting on this, while we're waiting on the market to go down there, and oh, wait a minute. All right, hold on a moment. We are missing the other entry orders. Let's see what happened here. Yeah, hopefully someday Ninja will stop the cancel button from getting really long like this. There we go. All right, now I can see everything. And oh, okay. All right, let's close this out. And yeah, all right. I did not put the negative symbol in to our scale in entry orders there. Yeah, there's the problem. All right. That's all it takes is forgetting that limit symbol or negative symbol. Sorry. All right, get that fixed real quick. All right, get that negative number in there. All right, save that. Yeah, okay, good. Our market's still moving down. And so let's go long. There we go. Excellent. All right, that's what we want to see. Oh. All right, now, yeah, we just wait once again here. And okay, so now while we're waiting for, oh, I need to pull the market down. There we go. All right. So while we're waiting on the market to pull down and fill these other orders, right, and watch the trailing, make sure that's all, the profit targets are trailing down and everything. I'm gonna go to the Q&A window here and see if there's any follow-up questions or comments here while I was working on building that here. Let's see. Oh, all right. Yeah. So Vika said I could use a limit entry order for A. So all right. So we'll get back to that here. So first, I want to keep an eye on this here. Here we go. Let's pop that right there. That way we can watch. Yeah, there we go. We can watch that profit target is trailing down. So good. Let's see here. All right, so we're gonna adjust the, yeah, so we can adjust this to a limit entry, and that will guarantee, so kind of going back to this earlier discussion, that will guarantee that these two scale ins, right, are exactly 150 ticks and 300 ticks offset from a known, entry price here, right? So again, to repeat what was discussed earlier, right, because this is a market entry, we don't know exactly what that entry price will be. So instead, we don't know exactly what that entry price will be in relationship to using the last price, right? So the last price will be very close to that, but there could be a tick or two of slippage, right? Depending on how crazy the markets are, right? When this trade gets placed. So, and yep, so there we go. So as the market's dropping, we can see our profit targets pulling in as well. So, all right, let me get back to the Q&A window here and see what other kind of comments or questions. Okay, yeah, so this is a comment here. Yeah, Vic is, it's just commenting here that he was able, so this is going back to the profit targets here. Yeah, that for the profit target trailing, he was able to use in the repeat the ticks of movement in a loss direction. Yep. Yep. Either way. So if you really need your profit targets to move tick by tick, then yeah, that's this is how you want to set up the repeat is ticks of movement, and their profit targets will move tick by tick here. Yeah. So, but again, it all depends on the chart type that you're trading with. So if you're on a 10-minute chart, in which case there could be only a few bars, between, the profit target and these other entry orders, right? Obviously, the larger the time frame is on your chart, then the less bars you're working with. So if that's the case, right, if there's fewer bars, that it takes to reach your other entry orders here, then yeah, you might want to switch to ticks of movement, right, or points of movement as well. Either way works. Oh. Let's see. Okay. All right. I'm going to clear out that comment. And yeah, I could use the NQ. When you're using the simulated data feed, I don't think it makes any difference or much of a difference if you're using the simulated on the ES or the NQ. Yeah. I'm not positive on that, but all right, we're almost there. There we have it. All right. So we got that filled, and bingo, our profit target for B landed right on top of the profit target for A. Yeah. There we go. Scroll up. All right. Profit target B is, yeah, 60.33. And let's see here. Is this actually giving us the actual price? Profit target. Oh, there's our two profit targets. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah. So they're both synchronizing. Great, 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 great. There. All right, well, while we are waiting for the grass to grow here and the market to come down, let's just do a recap here, because I think we're done with this. When order set B got filled, that pretty much, illustrated that, our profit targets are lining up perfectly, which was a concern there in the question. And yeah, so that was kind of like one of the essential requirements here. It's making sure the profit targets line up like that. So we know that's happening there. Yeah, so while we're waiting this to pull in and fill our last entry, let's just kind of recap here. Some of the key parts here, right? So the best that we can do right now to match our, or to get our scale in entry prices, exactly. Let's pull up this. Yeah, to get our entries exactly this 37.5 points offset, right? And then the next one 75 points, right, from the initial entry price is, let's go to the options tab, right, is we are using the last price, right? So that's as close as we're going to get it. So again, there might be a tick or two difference there, and hopefully that doesn't really matter, considering the large distances that are being traded. Hopefully a tick or two doesn't matter too much, but but just be aware of that. And at some point in the future, I'm sure that we're gonna come back and revisit the other order prices here and probably add some more options in here. So yeah, like for example, that market entry, right, this entry on the list of orders here, right, that actually, yeah, my guess is we might just replace this with the entry price. Yeah, but again, this, yeah, the other order prices here isn't 100% fleshed out. So I think it's like 98% there. But Jeremy had to move on to other projects here. So I'm sure at some point we'll come back and revisit this. And I'm pretty sure there's some other further improvements that we can make to this. So all right. But for now, we're going to use the last price here. That's going to synchronize, the scale-in orders to the entry price of this market entry as best as we can get. All right, so that's one element here. Cancel that. And the next element here is our profit target. All right, so the initial placement is we're using a swing indicator, right, to grab whatever the latest highest high is for a short, or the latest lowest low for a long trade there, right? And again, depending on the bar sizes and more or less your trading methodology, you will probably want to adjust the swing strength here, right? And find whatever setting you like best, to find that recent high and low point there, right? So that's subject to adjustments there. So that's the initial entry. And the next is the trailing for the profit target here. All right, so there's no trigger, right? So that trailing kicks in immediately. Oh, and there we go. Sorry. So we just had our entry for order set C just filled, and everything is, all the profit targets are synced up. So, and again, these profit targets are guaranteed to be synced up because we have all of our trailing rolls are exactly the same, and the trailing rolls are just using bar prices, right? So obviously bar prices are the same for every profit target there. But a key thing to remember is that we are restricting the movement of our profit targets. So the allowed movement is against the direction of the trade, right? Because our profit target is pulling in there, right? Our profit target's pulling in as the market's moving down. So, right. And actually, I'm going to stop this for a moment here. So, yeah. So our profit targets are following the low price if we're in a long trade, right? Minus the, or add, sorry, we're taking the low price and then adding 75 points or 300 ticks. Yeah. Right, and vice versa for a short trade, high price minus 300 ticks. Yeah. All right, and then the last component here for the trailing roll is to decide, is leaving it, letting the profit target update once per bar, or do you want to go with once per point of movement or once per tick of movement? So, and let's see here. All right, so that's our initial profit target. And then the scale and profit targets. For the initial placement, we are using that other order price and we're matching the profit target for A there. Right. And obviously the trailing rolls, as I mentioned before, the trailing rolls are all exactly the same for all three profit targets there. So, all right. And yeah, I guess I'll just mention here. So the stop loss for the scale-in contracts, switch back to the options tab. So the stop loss here is, we are using the other order price and we're just matching the stop loss for A. So, yeah. So that way all of our stop losses are synchronized together. There. That sums it up here. So, and I think actually I think I just remembered one other element here of the requirements here. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, yes, of course. So very obvious. So, right. So once the profit target has been hit, once the profit target has been hit, then we do need to cancel, right, the other, we do need to cancel the other scale-in entry orders. Right? Makes sense, right? We don't want to leave these entry orders just hanging out there. Yeah. So let's make another adjustment here. So let's go into our first scale in entry order, and we're going to go to the cancel option here, right? So this is cancel option. And let's see here. Let's switch to the advanced tab, and we're going to cancel the interval. So we're going to delete the interval there and go to the add button, and we're going to monitor the profit target orders here, right? So we're going to use order status changed. And let's see here. So we want to know if the profit target for A is filled, right? Probably any filled, right? So if any of the contracts for profit target A are filled, then we're out of the trade here, right? And so that is our trigger to cancel this entry order, right? So there we go. Click OK, and we're going to do the same thing for our second entry order. Go into the cancel, switch to the advanced tab. We're going to delete the interval here. We don't need this. And we're going to add a order status changed, like so. All right, so which order do we want to monitor? That profit target for A, and then adjust this to any number of contracts filled here, right? Which is probably a good thing to use any filled, especially when you're working with, right, a multi-contract system here, right? So if we're working with 6 contracts on all this, right? Yeah. So let's see here. All right. Well, I will save that out again with that last little adjustment there. There. And let's see. Also, I think there is one other here. Ah, yes. All right. So once the position of the trade, right, has reached a 75-point loss, or in other words, if the entry order for C is filled, right, because the entry order for C is 75 points, it's a 75-point loss. Then we want to turn off the auto trailing. Yeah, so right now, right, the profit targets are continuing to trail here. Okay, so we need to make one more adjustment here. Oh, actually, it says it's going to be a break even. All right. Yeah, so yeah, we can see here that it's not correlating with a break, right? Our profit target did not reach break even yet. Oh, okay, that's right. So this is incorrect. This is not actually break even. This would be the yeah, so this is not break even. This is actually the entry price of the first order set. Yeah, all right. But okay, so in any case, essentially, I'm just going to use these numbers here to determine when the profit target should stop moving here. So yeah, I'm gonna have to dive into the settings. So this is an element of the trailing rule here that I don't get asked about a lot here. So so I'm going to dive in and see what options we have available. So I'm thinking that, so there's two ways we could do this. I can, let's see here. So I think I can monitor for 70 points of loss, or I can monitor for when our entry order for C is filled, right? Because our entry order for C is at 75 points, right? So this value and this value matches up here. All right, but in any case, let's see here. All right, so I'm going to delete this profit target, and I guess let's start with our first profit target here, and let's go into the trailing actions. And so to stop this from trailing, and we're going to change our repeat here. So actually, we're not repeating indefinitely. We are repeating until. Repeat until. And let's see here. We'll switch this over to a tick by tick. I'll switch it over to a tick by tick based on Vika's comment. All right, so now we're going to go into the repeat until menu here. And all right, I'm going to use, well, yeah, I was thinking I was going to use the profit or loss. But the issue with the profit or loss is if I use a loss and then set this to points, right? I can put in 75 points. The issue is that the profit or loss, right? The calculation that NinjaTrader uses is based off of the average entry price, right? So your P&L is based off of this number here from the average entry price. So it's not based on the first entry, right? Your P&L is never based off of your first entry there. So yeah, NinjaTrader is always using your average entry price when it's returning you know, whether you're in a profit or a loss there, right? So, so that actually won't work in our case. So let's see here. There it is. All right, so if I scroll down a little bit, I have the order status changed. And this was my initial thought here. And the simplest way now to do this, which is we'll monitor to see when the limit entry order for C is filled, right? So we know that when this entry order is filled, that we've reached that 75 points, right, of a pullback here, 75 points of a loss. So, yeah, so we'll set it to that there. And yeah, all right. And if I think if you wanted to stop the trailing, maybe a tick or two, right, before this 75 points, you know, just to give yourself a little margin of error, then we could set the repeat to every 2 ticks of movement, right? So that could, you know, again, it all kind of depends on exactly where the first entry is, versus exactly, you know, the whole timing of when when our last scaling order gets filled here. So, but I think, you know, just knocking this down to 2 ticks of movement will most likely stop our stop loss trailing. All right, it will stop our profit target trailing from just before hitting the entry price for A. You know, so this actually is not the break even; it's the entry price for A. So, right, yeah. So 2 ticks, maybe 3 ticks there. So that should, you know, I think most of the times that'll probably give you a break even +1 or break even +2 there. You know, if you want to do that, you know, try that out. So, you know. All right, so I'll just leave it at 2. So there we go. So our repeat is changed to repeat until, right, until our limit entry order for C is filled. All right, and this limit entry is sitting at this 75 points here. There. All right, so make that change. And then I'm going to go into the profit target for B, and I'm going to make that same change. So go to repeat until, and then go into the repeat until menu here, and scroll down to the order status changed trigger, and then we just need to set up this order status change. So when the limit entry order is filled, there we go, that turns off the trailing. And again, I'm going to set this to, all right, ticks of movement in a lost direction, right? Again, we're only pulling in our profit target when the market moves in a lost direction. And I'll knock that up to 2 as well. And there we go. So now we have this profit target trailing adjusted. And so now for the second scale in order here, I can just go and copy B. There we go. All right, let me save that. And yeah, there we go. So now I got everything. Okay. Yeah, this is what I was remembering, that there was some element of, yeah, turning the trailing off at some point, and also making sure that our entry orders, our extra scale in entry orders were canceled. Yeah. I mean, that should always go for every system that does a cost averaging, right? Every system that has scale-in orders for cost averaging, yeah, you always want to make sure that you set up the cancel option here to make sure that you're canceling these unused entry orders here, right? When a profit target, right? When that first profit target's getting hit. So, yeah. All right, let me save this. Oops, hold on. I want to save it. There we go. Save that file, and we're good to go. Okay, let me check to see if there's, oh yeah, that's right. There was one other comment here. Yeah, from Vika said we could use a limit order for order set A. Okay, yeah. So let me go through that there. Let's get this back up. Yeah, so if we wanted to perfectly make sure that these scale in limit orders are exactly 150 ticks or 37.5 points and 75 points, right? Perfectly offset from this first entry order here. Yeah, then what I mentioned before is that, right, we can't use a market entry, right? That's, you know, right? So we don't know exactly what that price will be, but if we switch to a limit, right, or a stop here, I will, let's see here. Yeah, I'll just set it as a limit order to the closing price, like so. And then the other two scale-in contracts. Right, so now we have a known fixed price that we're working from. So for the initial placement of our scale-in orders, instead of using the last price, I can adjust these to the closing price there as well. So let's go into this other one. And adjust that to the closing price. Right? So this closing price here that's being referenced, right? They're all the same. They're all the closing price from the same bar there, right? So always keep in mind that the way Blackbird is designed, right? It's designed for the typical trader. So when you click the go long button to trade, or when a trade signal comes in, right, the average trade is that all of our entry orders, are to go in all at the same time, right? And then we have different profit targets, right? So, so these scale-in orders are going in at the same time, right, that the first entry order goes in. So that means that NinjaTrader is looking at the closing price of the bar at the same time for all of these entry orders, right? For all of these order sets here. Yeah. So that's why this setting this to a bar price, setting this to a bar price does get our scale in entry orders, that offset price does get them all synchronized. So to exactly those values there. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to leave it the way it was here. So I'm going to cancel this. And so the saved file, I'm just going to keep it to this more universal solution here, even though there might be a tick or two, right, of variance there. So, all right, so that was the last, yeah, I think the last follow-up there to discuss, although, let's see. Oh, yep. And Vicus did remind me, yep, how do we stop the trailing at 75 points? All right, so I did get that covered. And all right, so Vicus is saying perfect. So I think we are squared away on this question here. All right. Well, and let's see. Okay, yeah, I think we're done with this question here. All right, so let me close that up for now. And also let me clean up the Q&A window here. So let's put that question away. That one. All right, so John has the next question coming up here. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is going back to an earlier question here that John had about, yeah, how to dynamically uh, uh, change his profit target offset distances. So, um, yeah, all right. Yeah, so John, that's exactly what you would have to do is you would have to build, since you're using a custom bar type, um, that's adjusting the bar sizes there automatically. Yeah, you would need a custom indicator, yeah, that has the same formulas and as your bar type, and have that indicator output a value in points. So when you're using an indicator here in the offset section, right, this indicator needs to match the output value that the ATR uses, and the ATR outputs a value in points, right? So it's giving you the average true range in points, not in ticks. Yeah, so make sure your indicator does that, right? Yeah. So, yep, and then you're good to go. And then you could just apply whatever kind of multiplying factor to your indicator, right? That's outputting your bar range in points. So not ticks, but points. There. And if you so when you're coding this up and you kind of forget the details here, you can always go to the documentation. And let's see here, let's pull up the website here. Here we go. All right, so you can always go to our documentation, right? And you're working with Blackbird, so we're going to go to Blackbird here. Actually, let's just go to the side menu, and you're setting up, right, your profit targets in the order sets, right? So we're going to go to the order sets page here. All right, so in the order sets, we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, here. And all right, so here are the different select input windows here, right? So you can either select price, right, indicator value, whatnot. So down here at the bottom of the page, we're actually going to keep going down to the offset section, right? So here you go, right? The offset section, right, is the bottom half of this menu here. So the offset section, open up indicator, and there is an explanation there. So there you go. Indicator must output a value in points. So there you go. So there you can get your reminder there in the offset section, right, of the documentation there, right? And again, this is on the order sets page, right? There. Okay, so that answers John's question. Yeah, so that was more of a technical programming, kind of programming related question there. Yeah. And okay. All right, next question is Dave. All right, yeah. So Dave has a question about getting matching, getting backtest results to match. All right, so it sounds like okay, thanks. So one is you're using the strategy performance, and the other one you're using the strategy analyzer. Yeah, I do recall that as I don't think I would call it technically a known issue, but it is a known complication with NinjaTrader. And I think for the most part, I think the most common issue that it boils down to is the data, the data that the chart is working with versus the data the strategy analyzer is working with. That is, essentially an issue with getting the chart and the strategy analyzer synchronized exactly perfectly, right? So that's not something that I can help you with. But if you search NinjaTrader's forums, at least I know, like 15 years ago, people were always asking the same questions over and over and over again. And the answers I remember seeing is Ninja's just saying, well, you don't have either the bar data on your chart is not perfectly synchronized with the bar data in the strategy analyzer, which to me that makes sense as being the number one culprit. And then of course the other thing that NinjaTrader would bring up is, also, go through your strategy with a fine-tooth comb and make sure your strategies are set up exactly perfectly the same, right? And so Blackbird does kind of eliminate that component, right? Because when you load up a file, as long as you're loading up the exact same file into Blackbird and you're not tweaking anything before you do the back test, right, or the strategy analyzer run, as long as you're not tweaking anything in your Blackbird settings, you're just opening the file and immediately doing the back test, right? Then all your settings are going to be perfectly the same. So so that shouldn't be a problem if you're using Blackbird there. But I think when NinjaTrader was commenting that, make sure your strategy settings are all exactly the same, they're going to be dealing with people's, custom made strategies, either, using the strategy builder or custom coded, and there's probably a dozen settings, right, in their own custom thing, right? And so making sure all those values and settings in their strategy is the same. I don't think NinjaTrader actually has any documentation on what on I don't think they have like a list in their documentation on all the different points to look through, to make sure that everything's synchronized. They have other common questions on their documentation here. So if we go to Blackbird and go to the introduction page, and we scroll down to the bottom here, all the way down to the bottom to NinjaTrader strategy help here. There we go. So NT8 links, right? Discrepancies between real-time and backtesting. That's probably number one. Market replay versus backtest. Yeah, number two, right? So one's a live run versus a static back test. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, NinjaTrader has been really good at updating their documentation. So there might actually be a page now that will give you a bullet point list, of all the things to check to make sure, that your chart, that the data you're working with on your chart is perfectly synchronized bar for bar with the data that you're loading into the strategy analyzer. Yeah, right. So, yeah. And then again, the next thing to do is put your strategy analyzer in chart mode, and you're just going to have to walk through each, actually, no, better yet, go to the executions. Well, actually, executions or trades. Yeah, probably the executions. That has a finer resolution. But yeah, you just have to export your execution. Well, let's see here. Yeah, export your executions from the strategy analyzer. And when you go into the strategy performance, right, do historical and yeah. So even the strategy performance has an executions list, right? So there you go. And just start walking through, right, order by order there, and finding out where things get desynchronized. Actually, know what? I'm going to go back to trades. Yeah, I think going back to trades, you'll be able to find where things are out of sync a lot faster if you compare trades to trades there. Yeah, and then once you find that, then you can go to the chart and compare the charts and find out, where did things become desynchronized, unsynchronized. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And I think one thing they don't mention about the strategy analyzer, maybe they do somewhere in the documentation, is your your end date is never on the current day, right? So the end date here is yesterday, whereas this chart obviously has today. So there's right there one day of difference in your data that you're working with there. Yeah. And let's see, going back to Vika's question, yeah, I'm pretty sure that our profit targets stopped trailing. Yep, there we go. We just had a bar close and the profit target stopped moving. And I think back here is where I did hit the go short button. Yeah, so there we go. So we have the stop loss, the profit targets have stopped in their trailing. So yeah, going back to Vika's previous question there. So yeah. All right, so after my little spiel here, what is going, oh yeah, yes, close that out. Okay, let me All right, so I see there's some more comments here, question popping up in the Q&A window. So let me go through those. And yeah, so John's not here anymore. Okay. Let's see. Dave is asking, which one would I trust more? Well, they're both correct. So again, this is, I think this is really going back to the fact that the strategy analyzer is using different data. So yeah, different data. And the strategy analyzer, what did I do with it? Might be using a different trading hours session template as well, which could influence things, maybe not. Yeah, so the trading hours templates could be different, right? Which could add or remove an extra trade, so that, could be why there's a difference. So, yeah, I guess the way I would answer that is I just don't use this strategy analyzer except for optimizing. So I don't really have an actual answer for that. I would much rather just load up the chart with all the data I want to backtest against, and just looking through the trades on the chart is so much easier, in my opinion, than trying to switch to the chart and the strategy analyzer, and then you got to go through and add all your indicators and all that. It's just so time consuming. So I don't bother with the strategy analyzer anymore. I just do everything on the chart. So. Yeah, so John's saying, so in the optimizer, you can run the same test 3 times and get different results. Huh. I have not seen that yet. Yeah, so if you're, okay, so I guess in, well, actually, no, that would be the beta. So in the betas, yeah, so the beta versions that the beta testers had, yeah, that problem with the optimizer not returning the same results did exist in the beta version, but as long as you are, get rid of this here. Yeah, so as long as you're using, right, version 5.12 there, yeah, none of us at Shark Indicators have seen different results running the optimizer, different times, multiple times there. Yeah. So if that is the case, I guess, yeah, we need to see that. So hopefully we can recreate it and try and figure out what's going on, why that is occurring. So definitely, John's not here, but for Dave and Vicus, yeah, if you guys are getting different results from the optimizer, yeah, definitely take some screenshots of your strategy analyzer, you know, and email that into us, and we'll get back to you, probably requesting, yeah, we'll need to ask for some more information there. You know, most likely, yeah, well, most likely we'll need to get a copy of your Bloodhound and Blackbird file, so we can run that exact same test on our machines, and hopefully we can get the same different results, you know, that you guys are getting. So let's see here. Yeah. All right. Good. So yeah, Dave is on his way to compare all the different trades and figure out, yeah, where things go differently. So yeah. So one thing I know for sure is in your data series. So definitely you need to read up on NinjaTrader's documentation to understand what is the trading hours, right? Once you understand what trading hours is, right, it'll then make sense as to why the trading hours will definitely can make a difference there. Um, so yeah, so it could be that the chart or the strategy analyzer, the very first trades are different, right? And look at those timestamps, and you'll notice that they're at different times of the day. So yeah, but yeah, definitely read the trading hours so you understand how that influences the the data that you're working with, right? It affects the data series. Well, actually, the data on the chart that you're working with. So yeah. All right. So let's see. That's Dave's comment. All right. John's not here. Okay, and let's see. All right, now that I've got myself my work area all cleaned up and squared away, let me just double check, gentlemen, to see if any of you have any other questions for me today for Blackbird. Otherwise, let's see. Yeah, wow, we're almost at the 3 hour mark. That's a pretty good Blackbird workshop. So yeah, we got a lot of covered today. So yeah, so before I close up shop here, let me just double check and see if any one of you have any more questions for me. If not, then we'll wrap it up. We'll conclude today. So I don't know. I haven't done benchmarking in like forever. So, but I can show you that I have an i7 that's a couple generations old already. When did I build my computer? I think I built it at the end of 21, 22. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there we go. A 12th gen i7 there. This machine here only has 8 gigs of RAM. You know, the host machine has a lot more RAM, so I can run multiple VMwares at the same time for testing and stuff here. But yeah, just any recent i7 will do good. So, yeah. And gigahertz here is really what's important here. So yeah, try and get the fastest one that you can afford as well. So and for NinjaTrader, even for optimizing, I would say 16 gigs is probably plenty. But if you got the money to blow, then go for 32 gigs of RAM, and that's definitely enough. So yeah, and absolutely, NinjaTrader 8 is built to work on a multi-core system. So that will be your bottleneck if you don't have enough cores. Absolutely. So actually, here, let me send you over to another page here. So you can just do a Google search on recommended computer hardware for NinjaTrader 8, and I know there's other vendors out there. So that's actually where we got the idea to pull this page together. Here, let me pull this up here. All right. So we got the idea to pull together a page from actually doing a Google search and finding other vendors had good resources on what hardware in your computer benefits NinjaTrader 8. So if we go to, let's see here, documentation, let's go to this starting page, and down here at the bottom, here we go, computer selection guide. Yeah, so there's other vendors out there that have good vendor selection guides as well. So you might want to check them out, so you have a fully rounded, knowledge here. But yeah, we have this here. So yeah, it starts off here trying to figure out, do you need, a super heavy duty computer, or just will a regular computer work for you? Right. So there you go. So that'll help you kind of figure out, what kind of computer you need. But if you're going to be doing a bunch of back testing or optimizing, that's probably something that I don't think is mentioned in here. But yeah, if you're going to do a bunch of optimizing or back testing, then yeah, you're going to want a high-end computer there. But then as you go down, there you go. So here's all the components and what parts of NinjaTrader does the CPU benefit, and then what does the video card do for NinjaTrader, which is not much actually, and then the hard drive. How does the hard drive improve NinjaTrader, right? And the RAM and the motherboard, right? So each component does influence NinjaTrader in its own specific way there, right? So there you go. So you can go through and kind of read through that at your leisure when you got some spare time there. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the number of cores that you'll need, again, that's explained here. So, well, or actually better yet, that's explained in the CPU section here. Yeah. So. Oh, okay. Actually, there you go. Back testing is actually mentioned. So there we go. Cool. All right. Another question taken care of. All right. So I'm back to asking and checking to see if either one of you have any more Blackbird questions for me today. So I'll just wait a couple of minutes, and if I don't see any responses from you guys, then I'll consider us being done for the day. Yeah. All right, Dave is done. All right, thanks. I appreciate the answer back. All right, so Vicus, if you're done for the day, then yeah, I'll wrap it up. So yeah, while I'm waiting to see if Vicus is going to reply back. If you want a copy of today's Blackbird file, right? So I do actually have a file saved out from Vicus' question here. So if you want that file, a copy of it, just email support here and ask for today's Blackbird file. All right, and it'll get emailed back to you. So. All right. Well, I haven't heard anything from Vicus, so he's probably off doing his own thing, yeah, with Blackbird. So, all right, gentlemen. With that, I'm gonna consider us done for the day. Wrap it up. So, yeah, you guys know the drill. If you have questions you want answered in these workshops, you can email those questions in at any time during the week. It's helpful if you just put in the subject of your email, workshop question. So that kind of helps us know what your intention is. All right, and yeah, so with that, you guys have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye-bye.